price of Bitcoin around 2035 to be a little bit over 1 million, right? So somewhere between 1 and 2 million by this point. But I think at this point, we're not still hyper Bitcoinization. And so by this point here, we've got Bitcoin that is about, it's about 10 million. You're going to have drawdowns. You're going to have 50% drawdowns. So what? Doesn't matter. Just hold on to your Bitcoin. Try to get more Bitcoin. I think this year, Bitcoin is going to flip gold for the year. Right now, gold is winning.
In the last half-decade, Bitcoin has completely crushed traditional investments. Even if you assume a lower forward-looking CAGR of around 38%, Bitcoin still outpaces virtually every other option. Ethereum has also performed well, sometimes outpacing Bitcoin depending on the time frame. Solana, meanwhile, has surged strongly too, though Fred cautions that it's a smaller market with higher volatility. His bottom line? Bitcoin should remain the core holding, with ETH and Solana being optional side bets for those willing to take on extra risk.
Please take a little time to like this video, subscribe to the channel, and turn on post notifications for more videos like this. You can also check out our other videos on cryptocurrencies and the overall digital asset space and drop your comments and observations in the comments section below. Everything you do helps with the YouTube algorithm and immensely contributes to the channel's growth. Thanks and enjoy the video.
You know, we can look at just 5 years worth of data, and I think 10 years is too much, is too long of a period to start looking at Bitcoin because really in 2015, that was too, that anything that you're talking about 2015 Bitcoin, I don't think that was really an established asset in 2015. 2019 it was, and since 2019 we've gone up 62% in CAGR on Bitcoin, and you can see how it's just crushed the QQQs, which is sort of the tech Nasdaq, and the S&P 500, which is 14%. Gold is sort of almost hanging in there at about 12.8%. Real estate's a complete dog. M2 has been low for this last 5 years. It's been closer to 6% for the last 30 years. And bonds are a complete loss. You should not own bonds. They're just terrible. So if you look at it this way, Bitcoin is clearly the best asset to own. Now, this 62% CAGR is really right now more like 38% going forward. Another thing to look at is this is the 5-year CAGR of other cryptocurrencies. ETH has kept up to Bitcoin. In fact, it's exceeded it as of right now because of the last 2 months. If you went back 3 months, it would be a much lower number. It would be, but still not that much lower. So ETH and Bitcoin on a very big scale have actually kept up. And Solana has outperformed. I'm long Solana. I mean, it's a minor position for me. But look, Solana is close to an all-time high again. And I do think that the rails of these kind of smart contracts and stuff are going to be on Solana. Now, I think it's a much smaller market opportunity than Bitcoin. I think if anybody's buying both, I would say just go heavy, much more heavy in terms of Bitcoin. I would not recommend going massive on Solana. And if/when we go into a downturn, I definitely think Solana will dump more than Bitcoin. We were at about 60% debt to GDP in 2000. We went to 100% debt to GDP by 2015. We went to 125 in 2020, and now we're kind of stabilized around 120. I think there's no, on the CBO, the budget office basically estimates it's going to kind of go up and then go down. There's just no way that that's going to be the case. I think we have to assume that we're just going to continue going up. Is that the end of the world? No, I don't think it is. I think, we can survive 120% debt to GDP. We can survive 185% debt to GDP, and that most probably will take us 2 decades. So I feel like we got 2 decades left. Roughly speaking, we estimate the price of Bitcoin around 2035 to be a little bit over $1 million, right? So somewhere between 1 and 2 million by this point. This is still not a point where, it is a significant enough percentage of base GDP. When you get here, Bitcoin exceeds US based money. Okay. And Matthew Mazinskis puts that number at 2043. That's kind of when Bitcoin exceeds US based money. But I think at this point, we're not still hyper Bitcoinization. We have a dual kind of, we have a dual system, right? And I also think by this point, we're going to have Bitcoin legal tender. I think we'll have some way to basically use Bitcoin legally without paying taxes, without having to report taxes on Bitcoin. I'm absolutely not worried about, the block size or, the limitations of the Bitcoin blockchain. All that can be solved. Layer 2s, custodial solutions, Lightning. There's all kinds of solutions for that. So I don't need to go into that. It's not going to be something else. Not going to be Solana. It's not going to be Ethereum. It's going to be Bitcoin. There only is one possibility for that, for really money in the next 20 years, which is Bitcoin. Has to be Bitcoin. And so by this point here, we've got Bitcoin that is about, it's about 10 million, right? Now, I think if we extrapolate out just a little bit further, right? I think another 10 years or so. So now we're talking 2055. I think at that point, we have 10 years of living with the dual standard. And I think at that point, they basically just say, you know what, we don't need the dollar anymore. We're just going to make Bitcoin the only legal tender. And we're just going to kind of quietly retire the dollar. And at that point, most shops, most commerce, most transactions will happen on Bitcoin, in my opinion.
One key takeaway from Fred Krueger's analysis is that investors should stop obsessing over short-term Bitcoin cycles. Yes, Bitcoin will have drawdowns, 40%, 50%, even bigger. But worrying about cycles is a distraction. The big picture is what matters. Over time, Bitcoin consistently outperforms. For example, in 8 of the last 10 years, Bitcoin has been the top-performing asset. Gold only outperformed once. Bonds managed to win once too, and only because everything else was negative.
So I think if you look at, a 30-year projection from here, I think we're looking at a Bitcoin world in 30 years. And I think at that point, the debt it doesn't matter, right? So, I'm just kind of responding a little bit to this, all this stuff with Elon saying we've got an unsurmountable debt problem, et cetera. We do, as long as we're using fiat. But I don't think we're going to be using fiat in 30 years. I really don't. I think I think 30 years from now we will be using Bitcoin, and I don't think the dollar will be used. I also don't think the euro will be used or the yen will be used. So I think these currencies have about a 30-year life in them. Of course, we're gonna, as we move from a pure fiat world to a mixed fiat Bitcoin world to a pure Bitcoin world, I think, anybody who's got Bitcoin is going to do extremely well. That's kind of my view. I just think this cycle, people are like, is this a 4-year cycle? I think cycles worrying about cycles is not going to help you out. I think that, I think you're just going to have to grin and bear it, as they say. I don't think it matters. You're going to have drawdowns. You're going to have 50% drawdowns. So what? Doesn't matter. Just hold on to your Bitcoin. try to get more Bitcoin. That's it. Once we get to this kind of rate here, this 185%, at this point, I think the Bitcoin market cap is greater than the S&P market cap. Now you got this meme coin called SPX 69,000, 6,900. And the whole meme is that it's going to flip the stock market. I think Bitcoin will flip the stock market, right? So I tweeted this earlier today. Let me get that tweet out. Yeah, let's look at this tweet. So, if you look in 1980, gold was worth 2 times the S&P. It's a fact. So nobody really wanted to own stocks in 1980. Right now, even gold's coming up back strong, still only worth half the S&P. I don't think gold has much of a future in the world we're headed in. I think it'll be replaced by Bitcoin. This year, Bitcoin's up 24%, gold's up 31%, okay, year to date. It's catching up. I think this year, Bitcoin's going to flip gold for the year. Right now, gold is winning. Bitcoin has won in the last 8 of the last 10 years. Bonds has won 1 year, but they only won because everything else was down and bonds was flat to 0. And gold won 1 year here. Again, sort of the same thing. It was marginally up. Everything else was down. So in the years where things go up, Bitcoin's going to go up the most.
Krueger also emphasizes that Bitcoin isn't just outperforming bonds, it's on track to replace gold as the ultimate store of value. In 1980, gold was worth twice the S&P 500. Today, even with gold making a comeback, it still lags far behind equities. Meanwhile, Bitcoin is steadily flipping these benchmarks. In fact, Fred points out that eventually, Bitcoin's market cap will surpass that of the entire S&P 500. He cites the tongue-in-cheek meme coin SPX 69,000, which jokingly predicts Bitcoin will flip the stock market and argues that this meme is actually grounded in reality.